As the saying goes, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So how you look at the Middle East and how you actually evaluate, assess the Middle East is a function of, on the one hand, how you look at it, and on the other, where you are looking there. What is striking in the Middle East today, apart from the fact that yes, it is an inherently unstable place, where the weaknesses of the states, actually the collapse of the state in a place like Iraq, no small thanks to the American invasion, the collapse of the state in Syria and the ongoing brutal civil war there, the collapse of the state in Lebanon, the collapse of the state in Yemen, the shaky grounds on which a place like Sudan and maybe Tunisia actually stand. When we look at that picture, of course, the Middle East is a perilous place, and its instability, its lack of order, the lack of legitimacy of its regimes actually constitute a threat, not domestically for the countries that are there, but also to the vicinity, and of course, most notably, Europe. And it is also true that the previously most relevant countries in the Middle East, those countries that had leadership positions, such as Egypt, Syria before the war, are no longer as important for the world's political economy, and therefore they're also much less important in strategic terms or in terms of giving direction to the region, although of course the stability of Egypt with a population of about 105 and counting is increasingly important, not because of its intrinsic value perhaps, but because a collapse of the state in a place like Egypt will create or will engender insurmountable problems. So where is the focal or locus of power nowadays in the Middle East? The Gulf emerged, and the Gulf is now far more significant for two reasons. One, in the wake of the Arab revolts, which had seen almost all republics challenged, the monarchies managed, by virtue of a different type of legitimacy they enjoy, and by virtue of the fact that they had a lot of money to spare, they managed to actually escape what the republics such as in Tunisia and in Egypt had actually suffered, although both in Egypt and later on in Tunisia, things had been reversed. But much more important, the Gulf is now important because it is still a major producer of energy, but beyond that, it is also aiming to, and to a certain extent has managed to present itself as a hub, as a place of investment and management between the Western world and Asia. And to that end, some Gulf countries, notably the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, and behind the scenes to a large extent Saudi Arabia, in order to contain for what they see to be a growing threat, that is Iranian nuclear program and Iranian hegemonical aspirations in the region, have turned to Israel and have signed the Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accords may not yet have the requisite legitimacy among the publics, but those states are not necessarily being pressured by their publics, not yet anyway. And that cooperation with Israel is not restricted to a containment of Iran and a militarily common interest. In terms of UAE-Israel relations, there is a component of technological investment or technology provision and investment in the technology sector in Israel. And when Saudis also come around, obviously the economic opportunities are going to be amplified by several tones. And so in that region, therefore, the new order setters are going to be the Gulf countries, a Saudi Arabia that is actually undergoing what I guess Europe had gone through in the long 16th century, trying to reconstitute itself as a new and modern state, as an absolutist state perhaps, and modernize from top down and present itself as a political actor in the region, and trying to generate enough space for it to act more autonomously from the United States. And that was proven amply when President Biden, having swallowed his own earlier pronouncements, had to go and meet with, and shake, if not shake hands, fist bumping with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman. So the big thing, therefore, in the region is, strategically speaking, how to curtail Iran's hegemonic aspirations, how to contain the growing or the existing hold of Iran over Iraq's and Syria's and Lebanon's politics. That may necessitate at a given point a return of Syria's brutal dictatorship back to the Arab fold and their acceptance. On the other hand, as they try to contain with relations with Israel growing, with re-inviting Syria into the fold, the Saudis, through the good offices of the Iraqis, are also trying to find ways to see whether or not an accommodation can be reached with Iran. Whether that opening was for show or for real, and whether or not the Iranians are at all interested in assuaging the fears of the Gulf countries, that actually remains to be seen. And it is not to be forgotten that a country like Qatar or Kuwait are not as interested in antagonizing Iran as the other Gulf countries, and definitely Israel are. So we're talking about a new regional order configuration in the Middle East that will take time to actually congeal, and whether or not it will be successful is not yet known. The United States will have recommitted itself to a certain extent to the Middle East, not in the way that it was in the 1990s, which of course made things, in my judgment, even worse. But it will try, therefore, to make sure that Russia and China will not actually replace the United States, and therefore render the region as a potential threat to Western economic or political security. Turkey has a role to play in all these, but not in the way that Turkey's current rulers actually think. Turkey does have important market access in Middle Eastern countries. After having burnt the bridges, it has now rekindled relations with the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. Its relations with Qatar are very intimate, and with Israel, it is also trying to rebuild things, although it's arguably relations are not going to be the same as they were back in the 1990s, when Turkey almost had a monopoly over relations with Israel. Now that Israel is in good terms with many other Arab countries, Turkey's importance for Israel has also diminished somewhat. But Turkey, of course, is, because of its military prowess and because of its strategic location, a natural ally of the growing developing security axis of Israel and Gulf countries against Iranian expansionism, with one proviso. Turkey has never been, and in my judgment, is unlikely to become as hysterical about the Iranian program as Israel and Saudi Arabia have proven to be. It does not like, and it does not wish to tolerate, a further expansion of Iranian influence in the region. So the region has potential for rebuilding an order, and if things go well, even to prosper. But the precondition for that is the rebuilding of states, the creation or the generation of legitimate government, and a more responsive ruling elite to their populations. So far, this has been the problem. Nobody really found a formula to improve on that particular condition. And depending on how intelligently this new order building is managed, the place will either calm down, rebuild itself, and actually become positively contributing space to world order, or it will implode and will create a lot of problems for its vicinity.